Chapter 4. A Good Night's Sleep. The travel-weary guests were then led up the narrow staircase leading to a long, musty hallway. The interior was surprisingly cozy, with thick pattern rugs and warm-colored embossed wallpapering. Large framed portraits and paintings, intermittent with fancy old-fashioned light sconces, hung high along the walls, and an antique table with a large vase full of flowers stood at the far end of the hall. Fake flowers, but pleasant nonetheless. "This here's the privy," Kruger spat, gesturing towards an open door. "Be careful with the toilet. It's a wee bit dodgy. Make sure ye don't clog it up, or I can promise ye," he warned ominously, "ye might regret it." Hubert gave a quick, concerned glance inside and then hurried away, giving Tarzan an unintentional nudge to get ahead. Melody's room was first. It offered a queen-size, four-poster bed as high as the ceiling, draped with a delicate rouge canopy. "Wow!" she exclaimed in amazement. "I've never slept in one of these before." She immediately dropped all of her things right where she stood and rushed to throw herself backwards onto the plush, welcoming duvet. But her poor head fell back through the gap between the pillows, whacking it neatly on the solid headboard with a decent clunk. Kind of wrecked the moment. "I'll meet you downstairs in a few moments," she moaned, muffled amidst the pile of exquisite plump burgundy pillows. The boys laughed and left her there as they were shown to their own equally large and extravagant bedrooms. "This is so cool!" cried Tarzan, rushing to massive curtained double doors opening onto a balcony overlooking a view he would have to wait until morning to be able to see. In his own room, somewhere close by, Hugo too could be heard, eagerly inspecting his new surroundings, opening up wardrobes, closets, and desk drawers. "There's gotta be a secret compartment here somewhere." After toweling themselves off and changing into some dry, cozy pajamas, excitement and adrenaline had re-energized everyone to scurry their way back down the hall and down the stairs to find the kitchen where Dad and Kruger were chatting over hot mugs of herbal tea with honey. On the table were warm plates of steaming corn on the cob, slathered all over with real butter, tasty home-baked scones with slices of Gouda cheese, hot mugs of milky cocoa, and mini Snickers bars for a treat. It was obviously a bit late for so much food, but their hosts seemed to have known they'd be hungry. Without waiting for permission, the three of them sat down, happily stuffing their faces. "That's me all set for bed," Dad said, putting his empty cup in the sink. "And the same goes for the lot of you. You can check the rest of the house out tomorrow. We may even get a chance to head to the village later on and get a flavor of small island life." Everyone put their finished plates and mugs in the sink, and then gave Dad a hug and a kiss. After saying goodnight to him and Kruger, they filed contentedly out of the kitchen, making their way on up the stairs, eventually managing to find their respective rooms. Dad's room was somewhere down on the main floor. Kruger waited until everyone had left, then quietly shuffled from the kitchen in his robe and slippers down the long hallway to a locked door marked private. "A good night," he chuckled to himself mischievously, producing a set of skeleton keys and opening up the secured door. "That's what ye think." Inside was a compact office with hardwood desk and dark leather swivel chair. To the surprise of any unsuspecting intruder, however, and in complete contrast to the age and ambience of the house, There was a host of modern electronic gadgetry. Covering the desk was a complex assortment of buttons and control switches, like an expensive box of designer chocolates, but this colorful spread not quite with romance in mind. Affixed to the wall in front was a bank of state-of-the-art monitors. The mysterious host sat in his office chair, quietly flicking them on. Pale blue light bathed his intent face, images on the screens reflecting in his bagged eyes. Ominously, he started pressing at the controls. Bum, bum, bum. One by one, all the lights in the house soon winked out. It hadn't taken long for everyone to quieten down and settle blissfully into their beds. Tarzan lay tucked securely in his own comfortable bed, listening to the gentle sounds of rain spattering outside his lightly curtained patio doors. He wondered what his mum was doing back home right now. Probably sleeping. Did she miss him? Even a brief glimmer of his father, whom he'd never really known, made a tentative appearance in his mind. But not being very close, they both faded from thought without requiring too much coaxing. It's been said that it's hard to fall asleep in a strange and unfamiliar environment, but at this precise moment, after such a long and eventful day, here he seemed to have no problem whatsoever, and was soon fast aslumber. Yeah, right. A young, curious kid in an exciting house full of mystery. As if! Tarzan's eyes popped wide open. Suddenly flipping open his bed covers, he bounded out of bed. Making his way in the dark to the bedroom door, he paused in his pajamas, listening for any movements out in the hallway. Nothing. Standing painfully still, he held his breath as tightly as a diver keen to inhale a lungful of the aquatic, and slowly turned the door handle. Then, as quietly as possible, he opened his door without alerting a soul. Creak. Pause. Gah. Creak. Pause. Magic. That went well. Still breathing as if submerged deep underwater, Tarzan poked his head into the unlit hallway, straining both ways to see anything. He listened again. Still no one. Nice. With a slow exhale and a grateful intake of warm, musty air, Tarzan stepped barefooted out onto the long, worn corridor rug. With hands held out defensively before him, carefully and blindly, he made his way down the passage, heading deeper into the house he was completely unfamiliar with. Feeling like an intruder invading a vault, he treaded stealthily, imagining himself negotiating invisible laser alarm beams, avoiding nosy surveillance cameras, and cleverly dodging any other hidden booby traps. And that's when he bumped into Hugo. "What are you doing here, Tar?" hissed Hugo. "What are you doing here?" he countered, both of them feeling around in the dark, patting each other's chest and face to gain confirmation on the other's precise location. "Gotta use the loo," Hugo confessed. "Where are you going?" "Couldn't sleep. "Want to come explore with me?" Tarzan invited. Smiling and holding on to each other, whispering with excitement, more than likely louder than either of them were actually aware, they promised to meet further down the end of the hallway, wherever that might be, after Hugo had finished using the toilet. Like giddy, rascally boys doing a sneaky, because they were rascally boys doing a sneaky, Hugo moved past in the direction his little friend had just come from, and Tar crept forwards, on with his solo stealth mission. At that very moment, sitting downstairs at the control panel, eyeing the suspicious images on the screens being picked up by the indoor CCTV night vision cameras, Kruger smiled to himself. With amusement, he watched the two young rascals faffing about with each other upstairs. After a few moments, When he saw that the boys had gone their separate ways, he slowly stood to his feet, left the monitors and equipment running, and then left the office, silently closing the door behind him. When Hubert finally found the washroom near the top of the stairs they'd all ascended earlier that evening and was about to go in, he stopped dead in his tracks. What's that sound? He thought he heard someone moving about downstairs. Who could that be? Is it Dad? Or that weirdo called Kruger? Forgetting the pressing needs of his junior bladder, Hubert abandoned his quest for the loo and proceeded to make his way as delicately as he could down the stairs to see if he could spy what might be going on. Crick, groan, crack, grunch. What a bloomin' old house. Pleased with his nimble skills, he made it to the bottom of the stairs as silently as a black-clad ninja and peered around the corner down the hall. Not noticing anyone, he left his discreet vantage point and proceeded cautiously to see if maybe there was someone in the kitchen. Maybe some food will be left out on the countertop or in the fridge, he secretly hoped. Inspired by his new quest to further fill his belly, he quickened his pace. Without intending to, he ended up further down the main floor hall, standing right before the door marked private, which, unbeknownst to him, Kruger had just exited not moments earlier. Barely making out the forbidding sign in the dark, he tried the handle. It turned, and the door swung open. It would appear Kruger had forgotten to lock the door. Tisk, tisk. Whoa, thought Hubert to himself, wondering what inside might be so off-limits. His eyes instantly spying the lit-up console, he moved quickly to the big chair at the desk. Cool! What is all this stuff? He took a seat and, like any responsible child who has learned not to touch things that don't belong to him, began pressing the odd button here and there. Elated with his discovery, he fiddled some more with the inviting knobs and dials to see what might happen. Eventually looking up, to his surprise, he spotted his wee pal Tarzan moving about on one of the screens. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to meet him upstairs right now. Oops. Having stumbled along in the dark for a while, bumping into hall tables and large indoor potted plants, Tarzan feared he'd been making far too much noise and might get caught. Where the heck is Hugo? He wondered impatiently. Suddenly, he heard the smooth movement of a wall shifting directly behind him. Not that he'd ever heard the sound of a shifting wall before, he just instinctively knew. Spinning round, his eyes slightly more adjusted to the low visibility, he could just make out a whole section of wall reposition itself. Completely cutting him off from the direction he'd come, a previously unseen passage opened up off to his left. What the? Tar reacted, rushing to the obstructing wall, now blocking his path back to his cozy bed, awaiting him somewhere at the end of the house. How the? His brain was unable to complete the question. Turning his head to peer over his left shoulder, he surveyed the new option lying beyond. Another equally dim corridor with even more mysterious rooms hiding behind closed doors. So much to explore. Hugo, where are you? He breathed tentatively into the empty, chill air, which offered neither comfort nor listening ear. Surrounded by an endless maze of unfamiliar walls, chambers, and halls, Tarzan was going to end up badly lost. Meanwhile, due to Huey's happy trigger fingers, flicking and playing with buttons and levers, for which he'd acquired no permission to do so, electronics were also being engaged upstairs in Melody's room. With a click and a whir, a tiny little fan began to spin from the wall somewhere above her bed, causing the sheer canopy overhead to gently ripple. Then, A plasma TV screen affixed to the ceiling blipped silently on. A movie began playing of a young woman wearing a lovely floral summer dress, laughing and dancing in tall grass. Her soft, sweet voice half awoke Melody from her sleep. Melody stretched under her covers, gently turning over onto her back, wondering where the peaceful sound was coming from. Looking up at the ceiling, her glasses being too far on the bedside table to reach for, her bleary eyes could only make out a blurry, shimmering vision. It appeared to her like a ghost, floating and beckoning above her. She lay still, semi-awake. Hi, am I dreaming? She innocently mumbled to herself. Moments later, the TV shut off, the silent fan stopped spinning, and the canopy above her bed stopped fluttering. But Melody had already rolled back over onto her side, pulling the soft duvet snug to her cheek, unaware that she'd fallen straight back to sleep.